Hey guys, tonight we step into the rhythmic clatter of hooves echoing through Chang'an's imperial gates. It's the 8th century, and the Tang dynasty is at its peak. Silk-clad scholars wander the palace courtyards. Incense smoke curls through crowded markets, and somewhere deep inside the labyrinth of marble halls, the emperor has just written a letter. Not just any letter, a decree, which means you've got work to do. You, dear courier, are one of the lucky few trusted with the Tang Empire's official post. You wake before the city rooster, gulp down a ladle of lukewarm rice water, and tie your leather satchel tight. The sky is still dark, but Chang'an never really sleeps. The city buzzes like a giant tea kettle, with its 2 million souls simmering through the night. And while most are still snoring under bamboo mats or dreaming of dumplings, you're standing in line outside the courier ministry, squinting through torchlight at a trembling official who's handing out scrolls like someone assigning curses. Your route? North, toward the mountains. Estimated delivery time? Well, assuming you don't get robbed, swept off a cliff, or die of foot blisters, about 5 days. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step forward, bow slightly, and accept the scroll with both hands. It's bound in red silk and sealed with wax. Heavy, important. You're not told what's inside, and you're definitely not supposed to peek. The penalty for tampering is, let's just say, you'd prefer the foot blisters. Behind you, another courier mutters something about having to ride out west, toward the desert. You almost feel lucky. Almost. You tuck the scroll into the hidden inner pouch of your tunic and adjust the thick scarf wrapped around your shoulders. Outside the ministry, your horse, more like a grumpy, overworked mule with ambition, is snorting impatiently. The city gates groan open at dawn. The morning fog hangs low, dampening every sound, and for a brief moment, it feels like you're the only person alive. Then a hawker yells something about pickled radishes, and the moment's gone. You pass through the east gate, waving briefly at the guards who barely glance up from their card game. One of them chews loudly on dried plum and gives you a thumbs up, encouraging. Once you're out on the road, Chang'an fades quickly behind you. Fields of millet stretch out on either side, dotted with early risers, pulling weeds or chasing after stubborn goats. The road itself is surprisingly well maintained, paved in cobblestones where the ground isn't too soft. The Tang Empire, bless its overachieving bureaucrats, prides itself on infrastructure. Historians still argue whether the Tang postal system was more efficient than the famed Persian couriers or Rome's cursus publicus. But there's no debate that it was the most ambitious in Asia up to that point. Over 1,600 official courier stations, each spaced a day's ride apart, spanned from Korea to the edge of India. As you ride, you pass a small shrine nestled under a cypress tree. You dismount, light a bit of incense from the pouch tucked into your sash, and mutter a quick prayer to the road spirit. Not because you're superstitious, of course, just cautious. Back in the saddle, you hum an old tune. It's the one all couriers learn during their training, part folk song, part mnemonic device. The lyrics list every courier station between Chang'an and the far borderlands. It's catchy in the way that gets stuck in your head for weeks. About 10 miles in, your left boot begins to pinch badly. You remember too late that these were the cheaper pair, the ones you swore you'd never wear again. But in your pre dawn haze, they were the only ones not soaked in yesterday's rain. You distract yourself by cataloging the weight of your satchel, not just the scroll. There's also a half loaf of barley flatbread, a bundle of smoked fish wrapped in leaves, a meese flask of watered down wine, and a coin pouch with precisely 2 copper pieces, one chipped. You pass a caravan headed in the opposite direction. 3 donkeys, 1 camel, and a child holding a parasol twice her size. The lead merchant eyes your satchel. You tighten the strap a little. Even out here, you're never fully alone. The empire is big, but it's busy. Farmers, traders, monks, and entertainers all share the road. Still, you stand out. Your uniform, a patched blue robe with silver thread at the cuffs, marks you as official and targets you as valuable. This is why you ride fast and alone. Groups slow things down, and speed is sacred. Tang couriers are expected to deliver up to 800 lakhs, about 250 miles, per day under emergency conditions. On an ordinary day, 150 miles is more the norm. Still, that's enough to wear out horses and humans alike. Every few miles, you pass stone pillars carved with instructions for imperial messengers. One of them says something roughly like, swift and silent like the wind, faithful like a shadow, which sounds noble until you realize you haven't sat down properly in 6 hours and your knees are humming like angry bees. You stop briefly at a small way station, not a full courier post, just a shack with a kind-faced old man who offers you tea and hard rice cakes. He tells you the next mountain path is slick with rain and something about wolves. You nod politely, say your thanks, and pretend you didn't hear the last part. The sun dips lower. The road climbs. Your horse begins to huff like a retired opera singer. And just as you're starting to wonder whether postal glory is worth the blisters and probable wolf encounter, you spot your first real milestone, the faint, red-tiled roof of the next courier station peeking out from behind a ridge. You press on, boots aching, scroll secure, and stomach grumbling faintly. One day, down, only 4 to go, you wake before the rooster crows, but not because you're rested. The thin mat on the courier station floor felt like it was woven from leftover roof tiles. Your neck creaks as you sit up, the scent of wet straw and old shoes lingering in the air. It's still dark, but a low grayish glow has begun to pool along the edge of the horizon. You grope around for your boots, the bad boots, the ones that pinched yesterday, blistered today, and will probably evolve sentience tomorrow just to make your life harder. Sliding them on, you wince. A blister the size of a lychee has sprouted just behind your heel. You mentally promise to write a scathing poem about it if you survive the week. Outside, the world is damp and brooding. Rain taps gently on the tile roof, like it's being polite about ruining your entire day. The station keeper a sleepy teen who's definitely not thrilled about his job, hands you a lump of dried persimmon and gestures to the stable. Your next mount awaits, a mottled gray pony with a single, working eye and the disposition of a retired bureaucrat. He stares at you like he's seen too much, and none of it was good. You climb into the saddle with a grunt, tug your scarf tighter against the drizzle, and nudge the pony forward. The road quickly turns into a series of puddles, connected by mudslides. Trees drip mournfully onto your hood. Occasionally, your pony stops mid-step to reconsider his life choices. You can relate. Despite the conditions, you press on. The Tang postal system didn't pause for rain or snow or the occasional earthquake. According to historical records, messengers were expected to deliver messages no matter the conditions. Even during monsoons, imperial business waited for no one, especially not damp couriers with questionable footwear. Somewhere ahead, the mountain pass begins. As you ascend, fog settles around you like a wool blanket, thick and quiet. You lose sight of the path more than once. Trees loom like monks in prayer, their robes made of moss and shadow. You start to wonder if you're still on the road or accidentally navigating through someone's rice paddy. Then you hear it. Distant hoofbeats. You stiffen. The pony swivels his ear. A figure materializes from the mist. A fellow courier, judging by the flash of blue robe. You exchange nods without stopping. There's an unspoken rule. Don't waste breath on pleasantries. When both of you are one puddle away from hypothermia, halfway up the pass, you dismount. The incline is too steep. The trail, too slick. You lead the pony by the reins, your boots squelching with every step. The rain has shifted from drizzle to full-throated complaint, and your cloak now weighs approximately 12 pounds more than it did this morning. As you climb, you pass a stone stele, an ancient marker inscribed with the characters for cloud, horse, and duty. It's barely readable under the moss, but you pause for a moment to touch its side, a little ritual meant to ensure safe passage. Whether it's superstition or just something to break up the climb, it helps. Historians still argue whether Tang postmen traveled alone by imperial decree or because it was simply more efficient. Some records hint at two-man teams for especially long routes, while others insist that secrecy and speed demanded solo missions. Either way, it's just you and the pony right now. Near the peak, the wind picks up. It howls down from the heights, whipping your cloak like a flag and spraying icy droplets into your eyes. You hunch forward, muttering encouragement to your four-legged companion, who responds by sneezing directly onto your hand. A cheerful moment. At the summit, you stop for breath. The view is supposed to be spectacular, but all you see is fog and the vague outline of a pine tree doing its best impression of a sad umbrella. You find a patch of dry-ish rock and sit down, unwrapping your snack. Dried persimmon again. You sigh. At least it hasn't turned into soup. As you chew, you pull the scroll from your pouch and check the seal. Still intact. No smudges. A tiny spider crawls across the silk ribbon and vanishes into the folds of your cloak. Great. A traveling companion. You rewrap the scroll, secure it against your chest, and rise to your feet. One wrong step here, and you could slide 100 feet into a ravine, which is precisely the moment your pony decides to sneeze again, loudly and far too close to the edge. You grab the reins just in time. Descending the mountain is no less terrifying. The trail has turned into a slippery ribbon of mud and regret. Your boots squelch with every step, and at one point, you're pretty sure you hear a landslide in the distance. But eventually, gloriously, the path levels out. You reach the next way station just as the rain eases, and a few brave rays of sunlight try to sneak through the clouds. It's a simple structure: wooden beams, a low roof, and a bored looking rooster standing guard at the entrance. Inside, a fire crackles in a corner hearth. A middle aged woman with sunburned cheeks and the world's most impressive mole welcomes you in with a nod and a bowl of broth that tastes like salty heaven. As you eat, you listen to the wind rattling the shutters. The station keeper tells you that two messengers came through yesterday, one heading toward the coast, the other toward the desert. You wonder if you'll cross paths again, somewhere down the tangled roads. You check your satchel again. Everything is dry, miraculously, and your pony is asleep in the stable, snoring softly. You stretch out on a woven mat by the fire, pull your damp cloak over your legs, and close your eyes. But sleep is fleeting. Tomorrow promises more rain, more mud, and a river crossing that's never in the same place twice. Still, you made it through the mountains, mostly intact, mostly dry, and the scroll, precious, unread, heavy with meaning, is still yours to carry. The rooster outside is having a full blown existential crisis when you wake. It's unclear whether it's singing the dawn or protesting its continued existence, but either way, the racket jolts you upright. Your bones feel like they've been steeped in vinegar overnight. The mat is slightly less soggy than expected, which, given yesterday's rain, counts as a victory. You sit up, stretch, and nearly knock over a jar of pickled radish that someone left by your head. The room smells like smoke, damp socks, and mystery broth. The fire has burned low, but the coals still glow faintly. Outside, the air is cooler, sharper, clean even. The rain has moved on, leaving puddles that mirror the peach-colored clouds now streaking the early sky. You almost feel optimistic until you remember what comes next: the river. The locals call it the wandering tongue because it shifts course every few months, like it's bored of geography. Your route today includes a ferry crossing, and if that ferry isn't where it's supposed to be, well, hope you brought swimming skills and a taste for leeches. You nibble on a rice dumpling packed by the station keeper. A surprise, considering she'd threatened to feed you boiled socks the night before. Then head to the stables. Your one-eyed pony is still asleep, tongue dangling dramatically. You shake the reins gently, and he groans like an ancient door hinge. 15 minutes later, you're back on the road, hooves squishing in soft earth. For the first hour, the journey is pleasant. Birds chirp, clouds float lazily overhead, and your boots are only mildly soaked. You pass a farmer herding ducks with a fan and a toddler sitting in a basket strapped to a goat. Rural innovation at its finest. Then you hear it: water. The river appears suddenly, a long, glimmering ribbon slicing through the valley. But something's wrong. The ferry? Nowhere in sight. You trot downstream for a while, scanning for the little jetty that usually hugs the bend. Nothing, just reeds, frogs, and the unmistakable shape of a boot half buried in the mud. Comforting. Eventually, a plume of smoke guides you to the ferry, a flat bottomed barge operated by a man who appears to be at least 100 years old and possibly made of beef jerky. He sits cross legged under a tarp, carving birds out of driftwood and humming a tune older than the empire. He glances at your courier badge and sighs. One horse? One scroll? That all? You nod. Fine, he says, as if you've ruined his morning plans of intense napping. You board carefully. The pony follows with a loud snort of disapproval. The ferry rocks, creaks, and finally shudders into motion. The crossing takes 20 minutes. It feels like 2 hours. Halfway across, the ferryman pauses his humming to share a local rumor. A band of river pirates has been seen upriver, disguised as tea merchants. He laughs at his own story. You laugh too, nervously, and tighten the strap of your satchel. Historians still argue whether these river pirates were legitimate threats or just bored fishermen looking for a second career. What is clear, however, is that Tang Dynasty couriers had to carry not only the weight of imperial scrolls, but the constant anxiety of being robbed, intercepted, or simply vanishing into the wilderness. Once across, you thank the ferryman with one of your precious copper coins. He grunts, pockets it, and goes back to his bird carving. You're about to ride off when he calls after you. Next time, bring tea. I'm tired of wine. You make a mental note. Bribery by beverage. The road on this side of the river is narrower, winding through fields and forests. The landscape grows wilder. You spot a group of children catching cicadas with woven nets, their laughter bouncing through the trees. One of them points at your pony and giggles, whispering something that sounds suspiciously like ghost donkey. The insult is not inaccurate. As the day wears on, you reach a modest hilltop where an old tower stands, a relic from the Han Dynasty, long unused, but still standing watch like an ancient sentry. You rest briefly in its shade, sharing a few bites of smoked fish with your disgruntled mount. A traveler passes by, leading 2 donkeys stacked with baskets of fermented tofu. He waves, introduces himself as a wandering flavor merchant, and offers you a sample. You politely decline. He shrugs, mutters something about youth these days, and shuffles on. Despite the randomness of your encounters, you're always alert. Your eyes scan for movement in the brush. Your ears pick up every branch snap, every flutter of bird wings. Being a courier doesn't come with armor, but it requires vigilance, and the scrolls you carry, though just ink on silk, can determine border wars, tax changes, or even palace appointments. By late afternoon, your legs ache, your water pouch is empty, and your pony is now actively pretending to limp every few steps for sympathy. You suspect he's faking it, but you toss him a chunk of flatbread anyway. You're both in this together. You reach the next courier station just as the sky shifts orange. It's bigger than the last, a proper outpost with 2 other couriers. already in for the night. One is snoring in a hammock, the other is reading a scroll while soaking his feet in a basin of herbs. You nod a greeting, hand over your log scroll, a running record of delivery progress, and receive your next travel stamp. Your pouch is checked, the seal confirmed unbroken, and you're cleared to proceed in the morning. Dinner tonight is warm millet porridge with pickled mustard greens, a little bland, a little sour, just like your mood, but deeply satisfying. After a long ride, you sit by the fire, stretching your sore limbs and wondering what your scroll contains: a border treaty, a rice tax announcement, a love letter from a noble woman with expensive taste and poor decision making skills. You'll never know. Your job is to carry the empire's whispers, not eavesdrop. As the fire crackles low and the other couriers drift into soft breathing and occasional snorts, you finally close your eyes. Tomorrow, it's bandit country. But tonight, at least, you're dry, fed, and wrapped in the quiet rhythm of the road. You wake to the sound of someone arguing with a chicken. The argument appears heated, one-sided, and entirely in earnest. You roll over, face pressed against the woven mat, and groan. Your back is a patchwork of complaints. Your legs mutter threats. Somewhere, your one remaining dry sock has abandoned hope. And outside, that chicken is really doubling down. Sitting up, you catch a glimpse of the station keeper, an old man with 3 teeth and the stance of a retired wrestler, waving his arms at a particularly large hen that's stolen part of his breakfast. The hen, victorious, flaps onto a beam and watches from above like a smug emperor. You chuckle under your breath. It's going to be a long day. You pack up your meager belongings, recheck your satchel's contents, still sealed, still dry, and lead your perpetually unamused pony from the stable. He yawns dramatically and stomps one hoof in protest, as if to say, no tips, no trot. Today's route takes you through a stretch of countryside known as the Twisting Woods, a dense, looping trail notorious among messengers for its confusing forks, deceptive quiet, and tendency to attract opportunists with pointy sticks. The station keeper gives you a warning as you mount up. Keep to the South Fork, not the shady one. Bandits like shade. Good to know. You set off just after sunrise, the light dappling through the trees in golden ribbons. The air smells of damp earth, mushrooms, and whatever unfortunate creature last used this road as a bathroom. Your pony seems to know the route better than you do, occasionally adjusting course without prompting. You decide not to argue. He probably has more experience. Half an hour in, you pass a shrine half swallowed by moss. The tiny stone figure inside wears a crooked hat and clutches a wooden flute. Local tradition says this is the spirit of lost travelers, patron of those who misread maps and ignore directions. You offer a silent nod in solidarity. As you ride deeper into the woods, birdsong grows quieter, replaced by the rustling of branches and the low creak of old trees swaying. Your senses sharpen. Every squirrel feels like an ambush. Every breeze feels like breath on the back of your neck. Then the path forks. Left, shady and cool, lined with ferns. Right, dry, sunlit, winding uphill. You hesitate, then remember the keeper's advice. Bandits like shade. Right it is. You urge the pony up the slope. It's not easy. Roots twist across the path like drunk snakes, and the incline makes your thighs burn. But you're rewarded with a hilltop view that makes you forget your blisters. From here, you can see the forest stretching out like a wrinkled green blanket. In the distance, smoke curls from a village chimney, and a herd of goats meanders across a stone bridge. You let yourself breathe for a moment, soaking in the stillness. Then, rustling, behind you, you spin in the saddle. A deer bolts across the trail. Your heart thuds so loud you wonder if the pony can hear it. He looks unimpressed. Still, it reminds you, you're not alone out here. Bandits in Tang China weren't just thugs with swords. Some were former soldiers, outlaws with political grudges, or even rogue monks with flexible interpretations of pacifism. They targeted merchants and couriers alike, especially in wooded stretches like this. Historians still argue whether the Tang court officially sanctioned local militias to patrol these routes, or if village defense was an entirely informal affair. Either way, you're on your own until the next station. You descend the hill cautiously, one hand resting near your dagger. Not that it's much more than a glorified fruit knife. Eventually, you come to a clearing with a small stream trickling across the road. There's an old log set as a makeshift bridge, and sitting on it, chewing a reed, is a boy no older than 10. He nods at you, like he's expecting you. You're late, he says. You blink. Excuse me? He shrugs and points at the scroll pouch. They said the courier would be fast. You don't look fast. You suppress the urge to explain that your pony has arthritis and a grudge. Who said? The boy grins, missing a front tooth. Just joking. I'm here to make sure no one robs you. You frown. He pulls out a bamboo whistle and blows it. Moments later, two more children appear from the brush, each wielding a slingshot. A tiny, leaf-hatted militia. You're safe now, the boy declares. You offer a cautious thanks and press a copper coin into his palm. He nods gravely and salutes. The other two scamper off, giggling, and the boy melts back into the woods. Only in the Tang dynasty would you be protected by preteens. You cross the log bridge carefully, the stream burbling beneath you. It's shallow and clear, the rocks smoothed by centuries of gossip and goat hooves. You pause to refill your water pouch, and as you do, a dragonfly lands on your sleeve, bright blue and completely unbothered by your smell. From here, the forest begins to thin. You pass a grove of camphor trees, their trunks carved with old traveler's graffiti, mostly names, a few poetry lines, and one crude drawing of what you think might be a chicken riding a horse. You laugh out loud. The woods echo it back gently. By late afternoon, you spot the red banners of the next courier outpost flapping in the breeze. It's a sturdier place, half fortress, half barn. A few guards lounge outside, playing a lazy game of chess with carved nuts. One waves you in. You hand over your seal. Your pouch is checked. Still intact, thank the gods. And you're given a thin rice biscuit and a wet towel. Luxury. Inside, you find a cot, blessedly soft, and stretch out. A young courier with inky fingers from copying scrolls offers you a story about a message he once carried that turned out to be a birthday poem for the emperor's favorite dog. You grin. You believe it. As night falls, The wind sings through the trees, and you feel, for the first time in days, almost comfortable. The road is long, but tonight you're safe, and your scroll still sleeps, sealed tight beneath your cloak. It's not quite morning when you wake this time, more like that mysterious pre dawn hour where night seems to hold its breath. The stars are still visible, scattered like spilled millet across the sky, and your breath puffs out in tiny clouds. You rise slowly, joints complaining like bamboo in the wind. The room smells of wood smoke and ink, and you hear someone softly muttering historical dates in their sleep. You don't question it. Courier outposts attract all kinds. Outside, the guards from yesterday are still there, one snoring against a wall, the other tracing chess, moves in the dirt with a twig. They nod sleepily as you mount your shaggy companion, who, bless him, seems unusually cooperative this morning. Either he's well rested or plotting something. The day's ride begins on an open plain, fields rolling outward like sheets being shaken out. The grass is dewy, and your cloak picks up the scent of crushed clover. The wind's soft, not yet, awake, and the only sound is the steady rhythm of hoofbeats and the occasional muttered curse when your saddle shifts too far left. Today's leg is tricky, not because of terrain, but because of people. You're entering a zone known for roaming tax collectors, who tend to treat couriers like mobile piggy banks. Their favorite game? Inventing reasons to fine you. Oh, your saddle's too shiny. Clearly an unauthorized luxury. That scroll pouch exceeds regulation width. Your pony sneezed on a sacred pebble. Historians still argue whether these officials were deliberately corrupt or just bored civil servants playing bureaucratic dress up. Either way, you'd rather avoid them. You make good time through the first few miles. A fisherman waves from a riverbank, holding up a fish the size of your thigh. You give a polite nod and pretend you're too important to stop and hear his very likely exaggerated tale. Then you spot the banner, green silk, frayed at the edges, flapping lazily from a bamboo pole. Tax checkpoint. There's a line, a real, actual line, a merchant cart loaded with lacquer boxes, two monks with suspiciously heavy luggage, a goat, and you. The official sits beneath a painted umbrella, sipping tea with the serenity of a man who's decided to ignore all problems not served in a porcelain cup. His assistant, a tall, thin man with the energy of a particularly judgmental crane, waves you forward. You dismount, posture straight, scroll pouch sealed and visible. The assistant inspects you like you're a fruit at market. He pokes the scroll satchel, taps your boots, sniffs. Courier, he says finally. You nod. Destination. You name the prefecture. He frowns like it personally offended him. He squints at your horse. This one doesn't look imperial. You blink. He's registered. The assistant pulls out a wooden tag, squints at it, and flips it upside down. Name of courier supervisor at your departure station? You blink again. Lee. There are probably 5,000 Lees in the imperial network. It's a safe guess. The assistant narrows his eyes. Full name? You smile, tilt your head, and say nothing. He snorts. Fine. You may pass. You remount and leave before they change their minds. Behind you, the merchant begins a long, loud argument about lacquer tax exemptions. You don't look back. An hour later, you pass through a village just beginning to stir. Smoke curls from thatched roofs. A rooster struts like it owns the place. A grandmother waves from her porch, and a child, with cheeks like steamed buns, offers you a peach pit for luck. You thank him sincerely, though what you'll do with a peach pit is unclear. Further on, the road narrows into a sun-dappled corridor between two ridges. This is the kind of place that makes your skin itch. Too quiet, too still. You tighten your grip on the reins. Then, suddenly, shouting, you freeze. So does the pony. Voices up ahead. Sharp, urgent, but not violent. You edge forward until you see it. A tipped-over ox cart. Sacks of millet spilled like beige confetti. 3 farmers waving their arms, trying to right the thing while a fourth sits on a rock, nursing what appears to be a twisted ankle. You approach cautiously. One of them spots you and calls out, "Courier, can you help us lift it? You look strong." You glance down at your noodle arms and raise an eyebrow, but you dismount and help anyway. It takes 10 minutes, 2 splinters, and 1 near crush incident, but eventually the cart is upright. The injured farmer nods his thanks and hands you a wrapped rice ball in gratitude. It's warm. It's spicy. It's probably the best thing you'll eat this week. You ride on, belly content, spirits high, until a flock of geese blocks the road. Not just any geese. Imperial tribute geese, each wearing a tiny bell. The handler, a wiry man with the energy of someone who's long since given up understanding life, holds up a hand. Sorry, they won't move unless they hear bamboo flute. You stare. Do you have a bamboo flute? No, he says, but I'm told one of them responds to whistling. You try whistling. The geese hiss. You sigh, dig into your satchel, and retrieve the little wooden flute souvenir you picked up from that shrine days ago. You play a few terrible notes. The lead goose blinks, then steps aside. The rest follow, like it's a royal procession. You stare at the flute, like it's just granted you magical powers. From that moment forward, it stays tucked in your sash. The road is clear again, winding gently through fields speckled with wildflowers. Bees hum. Your pony begins humming too, in his own nasal way. You pass a stone mile marker, half eaten by moss, and realize you're halfway to your destination. For a moment, you feel almost invincible. You've survived robbers, rain, rice taxes, and rude geese. You are the Empire's most underpaid, overwalked postal hero. As you set up camp that evening beside a quiet stream, fireflies blinking like lazy stars, you rest your head on your satchel. The scroll is still there, still sealed, still whispering secrets you'll never read. By dawn, your joints have declared mutiny. You groan and stretch, every vertebrae creaking like a wooden floor in a haunted library. Your pony, ever the morning cynic, gives you a withering look that says, "You chose this life." The stream beside your makeshift camp gurgles cheerfully, as if mocking your soreness. You splash your face, bite into the last of yesterday's rice ball, and saddle up. Today's route cuts through a stretch of lowland wetlands, flat, damp, and crawling, with more insects than scrolls in the palace archives. Still, there's a weird kind of peace to it. Mist clings low to the grass. Frogs chirp like tiny metronomes. and reeds sway like gossiping court ladies. The only problem, wetland roads mean mud, and mud means slipping, slogging, and the ever looming possibility of losing a boot. You make it 10 minutes before your left foot squelches into a puddle so deep and dramatic it could have had its own folk song. You sigh loudly. The Tang government, for all its innovation, never quite figured out how to make mud elegant. They did, however, develop an impressively detailed system of relay checkpoints with distance markers often carved into stone tortoises and storage sheds built on stilts to stay dry. You pass one such marker now, mossy, cracked, but still readable. 3 lie to Shenmarsh Station. Encouraged, you press on. Soon, you spot it. A raised wooden building with paper lanterns swaying in the breeze, and a boy in a straw hat sweeping the front steps with the indifference of someone dreaming of being literally anywhere else. Inside, the station is busy, by courier standards anyway. A traveling official naps on a bench, drooling on his scroll. A courier with half-shaved eyebrows glares at a chessboard, and in the corner, an old woman carefully wraps pickled turnips in oiled paper. You check in with the clerk, a woman who could alphabetize chaos. She scans your seal, nods approvingly at the scroll pouch, still pristine, and offers you a small gourd of chrysanthemum tea. You savor the tea slowly. It tastes like quiet libraries and late spring. After a brief rest, you venture back out. The Asada road, to your immense relief, begins to rise, moving away from the wetlands and toward a low ridge lined with willow trees. The ground firms up. Your pony stops threatening to lie down. That's when you spot something off. A figure far ahead on the road, standing still, just watching. You slow your pace. The figure doesn't move. You get closer, closer still. It's a scarecrow. You exhale, annoyed and vaguely embarrassed. But then you notice the scarf around its neck. Imperial green, courier regulation. Odd. You dismount and inspect it more closely. Hidden under the scarecrow's base is a carved wooden tablet. Ravens gather where ink spills. Turn east. You blink. A code. Historians still argue whether these cryptic roadside messages were officially sanctioned courier signals or just the work of over-enthusiastic station masters with a flair for drama. Either way, you're intrigued. East, you consult your internal compass, aka the moss on nearby rocks. The main road continues straight, but a faint path leads off to the right, barely visible between 2 leaning pines. You hesitate. Could be a shortcut, could be a trap, could be a bored goose again. But curiosity wins. It usually does. The side path leads into a narrow glade, sunlight filtering through the leaves in the golden beams. It's quiet, eerily so. Then, up ahead, you hear it, a soft, thumping rhythm. You round a bend and find the source. A man sits beneath a tree, tapping a stone, rhythmically with a small stick. He looks up as you approach and grins. Courier. You nod, hand hovering near your dagger. He waves the stick. Relax. I'm station keeper Yuan. I rotate between hidden check-ins. You passed the test. You frown. What test? The scarecrow, he says proudly, and the riddle. Only clever couriers follow that. You resist the urge to point out You mostly followed it because your day had been too normal. Yuan offers you a tiny plum pastry and a stool. You sit, partly to be polite, partly because you no longer feel your knees. As you nibble the pastry, sweet with a hint of anise, he tells you tales of other couriers, one who ran from a wild boar for 3 Lai, another who married a local innkeeper and delivered scrolls from the kitchen, a third who claimed to see ghosts in the mist. You ask if the ghost courier finished their route. Finished it, Yuan nods, and then politely asked to be reassigned somewhere warmer. You laugh. The hidden station has a map, hand drawn, updated by couriers passing through. You note a few useful details: a broken bridge marked with a skull doodle, a generous farmer offering sweet potatoes to passing riders, and a rumored shortcut past an old monastery. As you leave, Yuan hands you a reed whistle. For emergencies, he says, or if you just get bored and want to summon ducks. You pocket it. Back on the road, you reflect on the strange logic of the courier world. It's not just about speed, it's about cleverness, observation, knowing when to follow the path and when to veer into the underbrush. You pass an abandoned shrine shaped like a lotus, vines curling gently around its base. Inside, someone's left a scrap of poetry. Ink flows, wind speaks, but the courier never sleeps. You grin. You're pretty sure you did sleep last night, but the rest fits. By sunset, you arrive at the next station, a tidy compound flanked by plum trees, the scent of their blossoms thick in the air. A cat guards the gate with the casual menace only cats can manage. You offer it a bow. It flicks its tail. Inside, the station is warm, stocked, and blessedly dry. You hang your cloak to dry, tend to your pony's hooves. One of them smells like revenge, and tuck your scroll safely beneath your mat before settling in. Tomorrow will bring hills, monks, and, if rumors are true, a temple haunted by a bell that rings when no one is near. But for now, the plum blossoms rustle in the breeze, and your mind begins to drift. By the time your eyes open, the sky is already the soft blue of morning rice paper. Sunlight slides through the plum trees in lazy golden ribbons, and the station cat is curled by your scroll satchel like a self-appointed guardian deity. You thank it with a solemn nod and receive, in return, an imperious yawn. Today's route promises hills, and lots of them. You pack light, tuck the reed whistle into your sash, and say your farewells to the station keeper, who insists on slipping a dried persimmon into your hand for energy. It's sticky and sweet, and instantly cements itself to your molars. The road curves steadily uphill. It's the kind of incline that makes your thighs question every life choice. Your pony puffs beside you, clearly convinced this is a betrayal of your long-standing agreement not to engage in unnecessary cardio. By mid-morning, the trees grow taller, the shade thicker, and the air begins to hum with the quiet chant of wind and birdsong. You've entered temple territory. The Tang dynasty was a golden age for Buddhism in China. Monasteries flourished like mushrooms after rain, often funded by wealthy officials looking to rack up cosmic karma points. Some were grand, others humble, and a few, like the one up ahead, just odd. You spot the gate first, weathered stone, half swallowed by ivy, with two lion statues on either side. One is missing an eye, the other seems to be chewing a small, inexplicable shoe. Beyond it lies a path, paved in irregular stones. You dismount and walk, partly out of respect, partly because the incline would make your pony file a formal complaint. At the top sits the Bell Temple. That's not its official name, of course, but it's what couriers call it. According to road gossip, the temple bell rings on its own, always once, always when no one is looking. You pause at the entrance. The place is quiet, serene. The scent of incense lingers in the air, and prayer flags flap lazily from the rooftop. A novice monk sweeps fallen petals into a neat pile, humming tunelessly. He looks up as you approach and smiles. Courier? You nod. Scroll rest or meal rest? Meal, you say immediately. You haven't had anything solid since the persimmon incident. The novice leads you to a shaded bench where another monk offers you barley porridge with pickled radish. You eat slowly, savoring the salty crunch and the warmth that spreads through your belly like a candle relighting itself. While you eat, an elderly monk joins you, robes patched in a dozen places, eyes sharp as lacquered pins. You carry a secret, he says, nodding at your satchel. That's sort of the job, you reply. He chuckles. Don't worry. We don't read scrolls. We read people. You eye him carefully. What do I read like? He strokes his beard. Like someone pretending not to be exhausted. You laugh. He's not wrong. As you finish your meal, a wind stirs the prayer flags. The bell overhead gives a single, clear ding. Sharp, soft, then silent. You freeze. So does everyone else. The old monk smiles. Always one ring. Never more. Never when someone's watching. Historians still argue whether these reports were real, coincidence, or an elaborate prank played on nervous couriers by mischievous monks. One theory even suggests the bell was rigged with a thin copper wire and an extremely bored squirrel. You leave an offering in the bowl by the door, 2 coins and a folded slip of paper with your favorite road proverb. Even a flat path tires the soul if walked without wonder. The descent from the hill is easier. Your pony trots beside you, ears flicking contentedly. A breeze follows you, tugging at your sleeves, like a polite child with questions. You pass an elderly woman carrying a bundle of herbs on her back. She eyes you curiously. Courier? You nod. Be careful near the ridge, she says, adjusting her bundle. There's a bridge with opinions. You blink. Oh, what? She cackles and disappears around the bend. 15 minutes later, you understand. The bridge isn't large, but it's high, spanning a deep ravine with a lazy stream below, and the planks creak, not politely, not subtly. They comment. Each step produces an unmistakable noise, a whine, a groan, a squeal that sounds suspiciously like a dramatic sigh. You take a single step. Creak. You take another. Horn. You pause. Really? You mutter. The bridge creaks back at you with what feels like judgment. Scholars say Tang engineers were quite advanced in acoustics, often building bridges with specific resonance to detect rot early. You're not sure if this one was just overly sensitive or genuinely haunted by a failed opera singer. Still, you make it across, one sassy creek at a time. Beyond the bridge, the road splits. You check your pouch. A bamboo slip map with charcoal notes tells you to veer left. The right path, according to courier lore, leads to a village that only appears when you're not looking for it. The left path curls downhill into a shallow valley blanketed in early spring flowers. Bees float lazily from bloom to bloom, and you spot a family of foxes sunning themselves near a cluster of rocks. They blink at you, unimpressed, then return to their nap. It's peaceful, too peaceful. You've learned by now that peace is often a prelude to inconvenience. Sure enough, around the next bend, you come upon a group of local villagers clustered around a fallen tree. It's massive, an old pine split and brought down by last night's wind, completely blocking the road. Courier, a farmer asks. You nod, already bracing for the request. He points to a small path off to the side. There's a narrow trail, steep, slippery, but you might make it. You eye the path. It looks like something a squirrel might consider dangerous, but the scroll waits for no tree. You dismount, tighten your pack, and begin the careful climb. It's treacherous, filled with loose stones and roots that seem to deliberately trip you. Your pony, to his credit, follows with only minimal complaints and a single dramatic slip that nearly sends both of you into a very intimate acquaintance with a thorn bush. At the top, panting, scratched, and speckled with dirt, you find a small shrine dedicated to Guan Yu, the god of loyalty and road protection. Someone's left 3 oranges and a wooden horse figurine. You add a rice cake and whisper, watch the next part. Yeah? He doesn't answer, but the trail ahead seems slightly less terrible. By dusk, you reach a ridge overlooking the next valley. Lanterns flicker below like fallen stars, and the distant scent of sesame oil reaches your nose. The station's not far now. One more slope, one more scroll-carrying day, nearly behind you. You take a breath, then begin the descent. You reach the next courier station just as twilight wraps the sky in indigo velvet. The building itself is squat and sturdy, with a tiled roof and heavy wooden beams worn smooth by decades of use. A lantern hangs crookedly by the door, its paper shade painted with a faded character for Swift. You knock once, twice, and the door creaks open. Inside, warmth rushes over you, simmering broth, ink, and the sharp scent of drying boots by the fire. A young station attendant greets you with a bow so deep you're momentarily unsure if he's searching for a dropped coin or just showing off. Courier? He asks, though it's painfully obvious. You nod, hand over your satchel, and stretch. You're back with a groan that sounds not unlike the haunted bridge from earlier. Dinner's ready, he offers, and the scribe's still awake. He's got a new game. You blink. A what? The attendant grins. He calls it Bureaucrat's Maze. You'll see. After handing off your scrolls for inspection and documentation, which includes a ceremonial sniff test to confirm the paper hasn't been tampered with, a system equal parts foolproof and foolish, you make your way to the dining room. The floor is warm with brick-heated panels, and someone's hung up a faded ink painting of cranes trying very hard not to look impressed by themselves. Dinner is salted duck, boiled greens, and sticky rice. You eat like someone who has recently negotiated with both a haunted bell and a passive aggressive bridge. It's quiet, save for the occasional crackle from the hearth and the sound of someone in the corner muttering, "No, no, that's not where the seal goes." That's the scribe. His name is Min, and he's exactly what you'd expect. Prematurely gray, ink stained fingertips, and the constant air of someone who once dreamed of poetry, but now battles paperwork demons in the ninth circle of bureaucratic inferno. "So," he says, gesturing you over after your meal, "want to try the maze?" You raise an eyebrow. "Does it involve actual mazes?" "Only the emotional kind." He explains, "Bureaucrat's Maze is a game he invented to pass the time between courier arrivals. You draw lots from a wooden box to determine your rank. You get minor registrar of grain allocations, prefecture C, and then must navigate fictional government scenarios using logic, luck, and 3 rubber stamps. Tonight's challenge involves an improperly filed grain report, a missing ox, and an auditor who may or may not be your cousin's ex-wife. It's oddly fun. You laugh more than expected, especially when another courier bursts in shouting, "The ox was in the wine cellar all along." The Tang bureaucracy was notoriously complex, with overlapping jurisdictions, rigid hierarchy, and a paper trail long enough to tie around the empire twice. Historians still argue whether this system was impressively advanced or just a very fancy way to confuse everyone equally. One fringe theory suggests that senior clerks purposely made forms as ambiguous as possible just to ensure their indispensability. Another posits that early civil service exams contained at least one deliberately unanswerable question, just to see who would politely pretend to understand. As the evening winds down, you help Min sort actual scrolls, stamping dates, and destinations with mechanical rhythm. He recites poetry between lines, quoting Dufu, and occasionally pausing to complain about how no one appreciates meter anymore. You're halfway through a batch when a small scroll catches your eye. It's sealed with a yellow cord. Urgent. The station mark reads, "Mountain Border Dispatch." You lift an eyebrow. "This came today?" Min nods. "Came with a rider from the western route. Supposed to head north at dawn." "North?" You echo, suppressing a wince. You've heard the stories: ice wind, crumbling paths, and monkeys with truly chaotic energy. You set the scroll aside, stretch, and yawn so wide it could be mistaken for a threat. Min smirks and tosses you a folded cloth bundle. "Guest bed's yours. Try not to drool on the registry logs. The guest quarters are small but warm. A straw mattress layered with thick blankets, a low table with a chipped ceramic lamp, and a window looking out onto the dark road. You settle in, tug the covers up to your chin, and let the day slide off your bones. But sleep doesn't come quickly. Your mind dances through the day's oddities: temple bells, opinionated bridges, bureaucracy as sport. Somewhere, a cat yowls in the courtyard like it's reading Hamlet aloud. You listen for a moment, then close your eyes. Just as you're about to drift off, you remember the phrase carved into the side of the courier station near Pingliang. Ink fades, but footsteps remain. You never really understood it before, But now, maybe it means that the message doesn't matter nearly as much as the one carrying it. At sunrise, you're already up. The station attendant hands you the next day's satchel. It's lighter than usual, though you spot the yellow cord scroll tucked right at the top like it's waiting to be dramatic. Your pony, somehow cleaner and fluffier than he was yesterday, greets you with a huff that you take as encouragement. Before you leave, Min catches you at the gate. He hands you a folded square of paper, no seal, just something to read on the boring parts. You pocket it, mount up, and begin again. The road curves gently north, flanked by swaying reeds and the occasional startled crane. The wind smells of pine, and somewhere in the distance, bells, real or remembered, sing you onward. By mid-morning, the road tilts northward and begins to tighten like a belt, narrower, rockier, and increasingly suspicious of your pony's weight. The air is crisp now, drier, with that sharp bite that promises colder terrain ahead. The trees thin out, trading their lush canopies for stubby mountain pines and crooked shrubs that look like they've seen things they'd rather not discuss. You've crossed into borderland territory, less imperial Polish, more nature's raised eyebrow. The path turns from packed dirt to uneven stone, and soon the gentle clop of hooves is replaced by the less gentle scritch-scratch of metal horseshoes on stubborn rock. You pass a small marker carved into a boulder, a single character, beyond, edge, or border, the kind of place where maps get vague and directions become more suggestion than guarantee. Up here, the courier network thins, fewer stations, fewer comforts. But still, the messages go on. You tug your scarf tighter and press forward. The village of Shanley, nestled between two hunched cliffs, is your next destination. It's barely a cluster of houses, really. Wooden roofs weighted with stones, chimneys puffing out whispers of soup steam. But it has a relay post, and that's all you need. The station keeper here is an older woman named Auntie Fan. No one knows if Auntie is official or just how she introduces herself. She greets you with the intensity of someone who has waited all morning for company. Courier, she beams, ushering you in before you can even respond. You look half frozen and fully annoyed. Both true. She feeds you barley buns and boiled peanuts while her assistant logs your arrival. The relay room here is modest. One desk, a sleeping mat, and a very judgmental rooster perched on a stack of blank scrolls. You pull out the yellow cord scroll for handoff, but Auntie Fan waves you off. That one doesn't stay, she says, serious now. Goes direct, over the ridge. You blink. The ridge, she nods. Old pass trail, still usable. Technically, you try not to sigh, but it escapes anyway. Somewhere between your eyebrows, she hands you a fresh satchel, lighter than usual, and points you toward the back of the station. Take the left fork after the third pine tree. If you see a shrine with two eyes, you've gone too far. If it only has one eye, you're still fine. That's not comforting. The path beyond Shanley is less path, more stubborn suggestion. It winds up into the hills with an almost philosophical disregard for your calf muscles. Snow clings to the shadowed edges, and icicles drip from rocks like nature's attempt at avant-garde weaponry. Eventually, The trees fall away altogether, replaced by wind and cliff. The ridge trail is barely wide enough for your pony, who gives you a long suffering look every 10 steps. Below, the valley yawns open, wide, quiet, and lined with frost. You pass a crumbling stone shrine built into the cliff wall. A single stone face is carved into the surface, one eye worn smooth by centuries of wind. You nod respectfully. Still fine, you mutter to yourself. At the highest point, the wind howls in earnest. It presses against you like a toddler with boundary issues, tugging at your robes and whispering things you'd rather not translate. There's a rope handline drilled into the rock, and you cling to it like a lifeline, which, to be fair, it very much is. Up here, the Tang couriers were half messenger, half mountain goat. It said some wore fur-lined boots with nails in the soles for better grip. One fringe account even describes a postman using waxed sleds to descend steep trails. Part genius, part death wish. Historians still argue whether this route was officially sanctioned or simply tolerated. The imperial records list it as an alternate corridor, which is bureaucrat speak for use at your own peril, but don't sue us. You finally reach the northern drop. The trail curls down into a hidden plateau, a basin ringed with rocky cliffs and dotted with a few stubborn trees. At its center lies the outpost, a squat stone structure with a slate roof and a banner that reads simply Relay 4. You dismount, legs wobbling slightly, and knock. The man who opens the door looks like he's been sculpted from salted beef, square jaw, tiny glasses, and the aura of someone who once had a long conversation with a bear and won. You're early, he says, glancing at the sun. You're surprised, you reply, stepping inside. He grunts, the universal language of reluctant respect. The inside of Relay 4 is Spartan. One room, one fire pit, and more scrolls than a Confucian library sale. You hand him the yellow scroll. He tucks it into a hidden cubby with a nod and starts a kettle. As the tea steeps, you swap stories. He tells you about a fox that stole his winter boots. You share the saga of the haunted bridge. He actually chuckles. Once, briefly. It's a sound like granite cracking. By now, the light is fading. You unroll your bedding near the fire. He offers a meal of root stew and something that might have once been chicken. You don't ask. Later that night, as the wind howls outside and your bones hum from the chill, you think about how far this message has traveled. From city scribe to scribe's assistant, from assistant to porter, from porter to river boatman, from a boat to rider, rider to station, station to you, and now here you are, huddled in a stone box at the edge of the world, one torch's flicker away from total darkness, all because a few characters on a slip of silk needed to get somewhere. Ink fades, footsteps remain. The outpost keeper offers you a final cup of tea before sleep. You'll head back tomorrow? You nod. He glances toward the scroll cubby, then back to you. Good. It's safer going down. He doesn't say why. He doesn't need to. You settle into your blanket, muscles aching, mind strangely calm. Outside, the wind rattles the shutters and laughs across the cliffs. Inside, the fire crackles, warm and steady, And you, courier of the Tang, drift gently to sleep, carrying stories forward even as your own begins to fold into dreams. Morning hits like a soft drum roll on the roof tiles, steady snow tapping in rhythm, reminding you that this outpost lives in the clouds. The wind from last night has settled, replaced by a silent, white hush that blankets the whole plateau. You wake slowly, feeling every inch of your body protest the idea of moving again. But duty, like gravity and itchy wool socks, cannot be denied. Your host, the salted beef of a man, has already shoveled a narrow path outside, leaving boot prints that look far too precise for someone who reportedly wrestled a fox over winter footwear. He hands you a steamed bun and a boiled egg with the same warmth one might reserve for, say, a very well behaved rock. You'll want to take the southern curve down, he says, pointing with his teacup. The ridge trail's iced over, unless you want to slide the whole way and reinvent skiing. You don't. Your pony, to its credit, doesn't even pretend to like the snow. It simply waits, resigned, while you saddle up and tighten your cloak. The moment you're back on the trail, the cold settles in again, less sharp now, more like a steady whisper that snakes its way into your sleeves, your boots, your spine. Still, there's a strange peace in it. Everything is muted, every hoofstep muffled, every breath visible. Even your thoughts come slower, one at a time, like monks filing into a silent meal hall. The descent is cautious and quiet. You pass a small group of mountain goats who look like they're judging your footwear. A hawk circles once above, then disappears into a cloud so thick it feels like the sky forgot to finish painting itself. And somewhere in all that, your mind drifts. You start thinking about the people at the very top, the ones who send these messages: court officials, ministers, maybe even the emperor himself. What do they imagine when they sign a scroll and seal it with wax? Do they picture your frostbitten fingers gripping reins, the aching joints of relay station scribes, the squinting eyes of mountain riders? Probably not. Historians still debate how much the imperial elite truly understood the scope of the courier system's reach. Some argue that the Tang bureaucracy ran with clockwork precision. Others say it survived mostly thanks to stubborn workers with bad knees and excellent instincts. You're inclined to believe the latter. Somewhere around midday, you reach a small encampment at a lower elevation, not an official station, more like a rest stop built by generations of couriers who got tired of freezing. A lean-to shack, a stone fire ring, and a carved wooden sign that reads, "Warmth if you're lucky." You are. Inside the shack, you find a stack of dry firewood, a kettle, and a wooden box labeled "Emergency Buns. Do not eat unless truly sad." You boil water for tea and chew on half a bun while warming your hands. On the wall, someone has scratched a poem into the beams. It reads, "Between peaks and scrolls, I carry ink like blood, but softer and warmer and rarely fatal." It's not a good poem, but it's oddly comforting. After your brief stop, you continue southward, reaching a river valley by late afternoon. Here, the snow gives way to mud and scattered patches of grass. The sky shifts from gray to pale gold, and the air begins to smell of cedar and smoke. Civilization again, if only slightly. You pass a small hamlet that barely registers on any map. A child runs out to wave at you, yelling, "Are you the letter man?" You nod solemnly. He squeals in delight and throws a snowball directly at your pony's behind. The pony, somehow channeling the patience of a Buddhist nun, ignores it entirely. The next courier station is a proper one. Clean lines, neat windows, and a flag fluttering lazily in the breeze. You hand off your satchel, sign the logbook, and are handed your next packet. It's thinner this time, just one scroll, tied with a simple green cord. Your next route takes you along the river roads, passing through forested paths and tiny bridges held together by charm and wishful thinking. These roads are calmer, softer, no cliffs, no curses, just long, winding stretches where the sun filters through the trees and dapples your path in golden freckles. There's a kind of rhythm to it. Now, ride, deliver, rest, repeat. In this stretch of the Tang network, your job feels less like survival and more like ritual. You pass fields where farmers bend over winter vegetables. Fishermen wave from boats shaped like needles. A woman herds ducks with more authority than most generals. You tip your hat, she nods back. Not everything is serene. You still face robbers from time to time, some bold, some bumbling. There's one memorable encounter where three would-be thieves leap from the bushes only to immediately start arguing about whose idea it was. You offer them a salted plum and ride off while they're still bickering. Tang Dynasty postmen weren't defenseless. You carry a short blade, of course, but more often you rely on speed, cleverness, and the fact that you're generally seen as neutral, like a walking message, with legs and mild social anxiety. You also rely on symbols. Each satchel bears the Imperial Courier mark, a stylized goose feather crossed with bamboo. Most bandits know better than to tangle with Imperial communications. Those who don't tend to vanish into the footnotes of history, if they're lucky. As dusk settles, you arrive at a village inn just off the river road. It's modest, 2 rooms, a shared hearth, and a smell of something halfway between turnips and fried dough. You stable your pony, hang your cloak to dry, and finally sit. The innkeeper brings tea and rice porridge, muttering something about couriers always eating like they haven't seen a kitchen in days. She's not wrong. At your table sits an old man sharpening a calligraphy brush with such intensity you wonder if it wronged him personally. He glances up, sees your courier sash, and nods. Used to be one myself, he says. Before the knees gave out. You nod back. Miss it? He laughs. No, but I remember every bend in the road, every bad dumpling, every time I outran a thunderstorm by 10 seconds. You raise your teacup in silent salute. Later, as you stretch out on your sleeping mat beneath a wool blanket, you feel the river's current echo in your bones. You're tired, yes, but the good kind. The kind that says, I did something today. I carried the empire 1 mile farther. You close your eyes. The fire crackles, and somewhere a letter arrives, safely, because of you. By dawn, the inn is already stirring with quiet purpose. The cook is whistling tunelessly. The fire has been rekindled, and outside, the river burbles as if gossiping about yesterday's travelers. You step into the morning mist with your pony, refreshed in body, if not entirely in spirit. It's been weeks now, maybe months. You've lost count since you first took this satchel and its endless scrolls into your care. Time flows differently out here. Your route today follows the great river, the Yangtze, thick and lazy, like a sleepy dragon coiled through the southern countryside. The path is flat, thank the ancestors, but it's muddy, rutted, and smells unmistakably of wet hay and existential despair. You pass fishermen casting their nets from narrow canoes, each one offering a nod or a grunt in your direction. There's a kind of unspoken kinship between people who live by timing, weather, and the whims of moving things. Just before noon, you reach a small relay dock run by a local clan who've maintained this station for 3 generations. The eldest son greets you with the usual formalities, offers a quick snack, steamed lotus root, pickled radish, and a cup of barley tea, and gestures toward a narrow boat tethered by the pier. This next leg, it's all water. You stow your pony, not on the boat. He gets his own corral and a bucket of fermented oats, and board the courier skiff, narrow as a coffin but far more buoyant. The boatman is a young woman with wind-chapped cheeks and arms like coiled rope. She hands you a straw mat, points to the floor, and mutters, "It rocks less if you sleep." She's lying. The boat glides silently through reed-thick channels, dodging water buffalo, lotus patches, and the occasional drifting duck. You try to relax, but your stomach begins to question your choices about 5 bends in, and that's when the rain starts. It's not dramatic, more of a steady drizzle, but the timing is suspiciously perfect. The boatwoman pulls up her hood and continues paddling with the same energy as someone folding laundry. You sit in your damp cloak, questioning your life choices and counting the leaks in the boat's woven canopy. It's during moments like this that the paperwork looms large. You've been carrying a ledger since the start of this route, a long, folding document on bamboo slats that records each transfer of cargo, time of arrival, road conditions, and personal remarks from every courier along the chain. Yours currently says, slippery, leaky boat, stomach regrets radish. Historians still argue whether this system of rotating logbooks was truly efficient or just a very fancy way of blaming the last guy. But there's no denying that it built accountability. If you failed to deliver a scroll, or worse, delayed it without explanation, someone, somewhere, would notice. There's even a tiny red stamp in the corner of your ledger that reads, "Fast as the sparrow, clear as the lotus." It's both motivational and vaguely threatening. By mid-afternoon, the rain clears. You pass under a low wooden bridge where a child leans over the railing, dangling a ribbon into the water. When she sees you, she waves her arms wildly and shouts, "Letter boat." You salute her with your brush pen. At the next dock, you transverse back to dry land and reunite with your pony, who somehow smells even more like pickled oats than usual. The station keeper, seeing your damp expression and notebook full of complaints, chuckles softly and hands you a fresh scroll. This one is marked urgent. The seal is thicker, The ribbon double knotted, you're to deliver it directly to the magistrate in the market town 2 days west. And just like that, you're off again. This western stretch is flatter, dotted with rice paddies and thatched villages. The trail winds through bamboo groves, where red pandas peer at you from above like tiny, judgmental monks. You ride past shrines, roadside inns, and at one point, a man trying to balance 12 bowls on his head for reasons never explained. It's also hotter here, muggy. The air sticks to your skin, and even the flies seem sluggish. You fan yourself with a folded leaflet that says Confucian Values, now in illustrated form, and push onward. Evening finds you at a crossroads station with 2 beds, 1 hammock, and a very territorial chicken. The keeper welcomes you with millet congee and tells you a story about a fellow courier who once delivered an entire roasted goose to the wrong prefect, who, coincidentally, just ate it and said nothing. Sometimes, the keeper says, you just have to smile and nod. You nod as you drift off that night, belly full and scroll pouch safely tucked beneath your pillow. You begin to realize that your job isn't just about moving information. It's about stitching together the quiet, ridiculous, necessary fabric of daily life in a country so vast it feels like a dream. Every message you carry is a thread in that tapestry. Some threads are golden edicts from the court, others are mundane reports about tax collection, river depth, or how many ducks went missing this month. But they all matter. They all move people. They all keep the machine humming. And somewhere in the quiet of night, as crickets chirp and frogs croak a lullaby from the paddies, you allow yourself one simple thought: I'm part of something. You smile, even as the chicken flutters up onto your blanket and settles in like it pays rent. Tomorrow is another ride, another scroll, another story. But tonight, you sleep. You wake with feathers in your face and a vague sense that you've offended a chicken in a dream. Morning comes fast and golden here in the southern flatlands. The air is already thick with the scent of warm earth, fried tofu, and the slightly burnt rice from the innkeeper's first attempt at breakfast. Your pony seems energized, likely from a night without hills. You, on the other hand, feel like a soup dumpling that's been re-steamed one too many times. But the scroll pouch waits for no one. Today's stretch is through cultivated countryside, neatly bordered paddies, vegetable gardens thick with leafy greens, and rows of mulberry trees trimmed for silkworms. This is silk country now, and the wealth shows. Houses here are better tiled. The dogs bark with more confidence. Even the scarecrows look better dressed. Your current delivery is still that urgent, double-knotted scroll for the magistrate, and the weight of it, figuratively, presses on your spine like a particularly nosy ancestor. Historians still debate whether Tang couriers truly understood the contents of their messages. Some suggest they were trained not to look, others that they simply didn't care. But there are records of a few daring messengers who pieced things together, especially when the news was particularly juicy. You? You don't peek, mostly because you're too tired to add accidentally implicated in imperial intrigue to your resume. The main road bends toward a large bridge spanning a lazy tributary. As you approach, A traveling opera troupe is blocking half the path. One of the actors, dressed in bright red robes and alarmingly large eyebrows, waves you over. Courier, he shouts. Are you carrying anything cursed? You blink. I don't think so. Good. You may pass. He steps aside with exaggerated ceremony, gesturing grandly, while another performer sets off a firecracker in celebration of your safe passage. You're not sure if this is protection against spirits or just Tuesday for them. Once across the bridge, the landscape flattens further, and you start to see road signs written in official Tang script, square, orderly characters marking the distance to the next market town. Longfan. It's your destination. A few more hours of trotting past ox carts, vendors hawking sesame buns, and a poet sitting under a tree shouting verses at birds, and you're finally at the town gate. Longfan isn't large, but it's clearly important. Walls, freshly painted, guards well fed, and an actual sign-in book at the gate where a young clerk asks your name, route origin, and how many dumplings you've eaten in the last week. Okay, maybe not that last one, but she clearly wants to know. Once inside, it takes only a few turns through stone-paved alleys before you reach the magistrate's office. The building is wide and slightly crooked, like it grew sideways out of civic obligation. You dismount, straighten your sash, and march up the steps. Inside, the magistrate is sitting at a desk the size of a modest fishing boat. He wears a tall black hat and a robe with a crane embroidered so finely it looks like it might fly off at any moment. He glances at you, then at the scroll, then back at you. Is this the one? He asks his assistant. The assistant nods. You hand over the pouch, bow deeply, and wait. He unseals the scroll with a flick of the wrist and reads it silently, his face an unreadable wall of official emotion to Tobiem. You stand perfectly still, trying not to blink too loudly. Then he says, Ah, folds the scroll, and places it in a lacquered box. That's it. No applause, no fireworks, no medals, just a quiet, ah. Still, you get a warm bowl of mung bean soup from the assistant and a stamp on your ledger marked fulfilled excellent condition. Outside, you feel both underwhelmed and oddly proud, like finishing a long book with a quiet ending. It didn't explode, but you know it mattered. You're told you'll rest here for the night. Your next assignment is already scheduled, of course. But for now, you have the rare gift of a full evening without riding, scribbling, or being chased by territorial ducks. You wander the market. A woman is selling hand-carved whistles shaped like mythical beasts. A boy is offering blessed ink with questionable ingredients. A man is arguing loudly with his goat about philosophy. You listen in and realize the goat is winning. At a tea house, you meet a few other couriers, all winding down from their own deliveries. One's been up north near the steppes and still has sand in his boots. Another is covered in mosquito bites from a southern jungle route. You swap stories, some exaggerated, some suspiciously detailed. There's laughter, sighing, and a round of cold barley wine that makes your ears tingle. Later, under the soft buzz of lantern light, someone asks, You ever think about quitting? You chew your dumpling thoughtfully, sometimes, but then I remember how weird it would be to sit still. They all nod, because here's the truth. Tang Dynasty postmen weren't just moving letters. They were moving the rhythm of the empire, keeping governors connected to generals, tax reports flowing back to the capital, love letters creeping between provinces like secret vines. You all carried burdens, but you also carried life, and that, more than a warm bed or a perfect scroll, is what keeps you riding. You drift off that night in a real bed, under a real roof, listening to the soft whistle of someone's bamboo flute floating up through the window. Somewhere out there, another courier is picking up their pouch, tightening their cloak, and riding into the dusk. But not you, not tonight. Tonight, you sleep. Your next assignment begins before dawn. You're shaken awake by a young page who whispers, "The magistrate's seal needs to leave with the tide." You blink blearily. The tide? Apparently, yes. The next dispatch is coastal. You're headed east toward a port town where messages will board a ship bound for another provincial capital. The Tang dynasty's efficiency doesn't sleep, and apparently, neither do you. You are given a fresh satchel, sealed tight and waxed against moisture. This time, you're not the sole courier. You're joining a small team escorting multiple parcels. The lead rider is an older man named Sheng, who walks with a limp and carries an unsettling number of snacks. His cloak is patched, his tone dry, and he greets you with, "Try not to die. It makes the paperwork unbearable." With that pep talk, you're off. This leg cuts through low hills and wind-carved plains. The terrain changes quickly. Scrubby grass becomes olive groves. And then, near midday, you find yourself in a region dotted with salt pans, flat, white pools drying under the sun like a checkerboard made by very tired gods. The coastal smell hits you hard, briny, fishy, and strangely nostalgic. Maybe it's the seaweed. Maybe it's the air that tastes like boiled shells. Maybe it's the fact that you're once again reminded that bathhouses are a blessing and that you have not seen one in 4 days. You pass a team of oxen dragging bundles of bamboo. A fisherman waves from the river, his cormorants perched obediently on the rim of his boat, necks leashed with gentle rings. One bird dips, comes up with a silver flash, and spits it into a basket. You imagine turning this whole postal gig into a bird-based operation, but then you remember birds don't write legible receipts. At a narrow rest station beside a windmill, you and your team stop for lunch. Sheng shares pickled eggs. Another courier, young, still bright-eyed, tries to compose a haiku about road dust. It's terrible, but everyone claps anyway. These small rituals, food, bad poetry, mutual silence, are how messengers bond. Historians still debate whether Tang postal teams always travel together or if they split based on speed and rank, but stories of shared campsites and traveling clusters suggest a mix of both, especially in remote regions prone to robbery or, worse, spontaneous poetry recitals. Your route soon curves through a thicket of pine trees. The breeze is stronger here, carrying the sound of gulls and the far-off crash of waves. You feel it before you see it, the edge of the empire, the sea, and then you arrive. The port town is lively, noisy with carts, chickens, and sailors yelling things that might be directions or insults. Boats bob in the harbor, some painted with bright dragons, others bare and barnacled. Stalls line the docks, selling dried squid, wind charms, and sea cucumbers, which you are politely declining. You're directed to a long, low building marked with the imperial seal. It smells of wax, ink, and a very determined cat who has clearly claimed the front steps. Inside, clerks are sorting documents into wooden compartments, sealing scrolls with wax, and scribbling down transfer notes with brushes so fast they blur. This is a node, a nexus where land couriers meet sea couriers. You hand over your satchel to a tall, grumpy man who sniffs it like a melon, nods, and slaps it with a jade token before placing it in a lacquered crate. It will sail tomorrow. Your work here is done. You're offered a bunk in a shared loft upstairs. The walls are thin, the mattress is thinner, but the sea breeze filters through the slats and rocks the whole building like a sleepy cradle. But you don't sleep right away. Instead, you walk the docks, watching lanterns shimmer on the water. Oh, group of sailors are playing a dice game beside a stack of barrels, and a woman with a dulcimer sings an old ballad about a lovesick ghost who turned into a jellyfish. You suspect that's not the original ending, but it's oddly beautiful. You find a bench and sit down, letting the salty wind tangle your hair. Somewhere in the dark, a bell rings. Maybe a ship departing. Maybe a monk calling turtles to prayer. Anything seems possible by the sea. You think about the path you took to get here. The mountains, the rivers, the villages, the inns with burnt rice and angry poultry. Every message you carried wound through that same network. Your boots a thread, stitching paper to place, to people, to power, and you, the humble courier, are both needle and spool. It's comforting in its way. You don't have to be a hero or a poet or even particularly hygienic. You just have to move forward, deliver the thing, stamp the book, sleep, rise, repeat. There's a kind of peace in that. You head back upstairs, where Sheng is already snoring with heroic volume. You stuff wax in your ears, wrap your blanket tight, and let the rhythm of waves and snoring lull you into a sleep that smells of ink and brine. Tomorrow, you'll ride again, somewhere new, but tonight, your work has reached the edge of the map, and for now, that is enough. The sun filters in through slatted shutters, and for once, you're not in a rush. The courier hub by the sea is a rare stopover where messengers get a full day's rest, partly to wait for responses, partly because someone in the Tang bureaucracy finally admitted that horses and humans alike occasionally require naps. You stretch, wince, and sniff your cloak, definitely overdue for a rinse. Downstairs, a sleepy clerk with hair like a broom hands you a small, ink-spotted scroll. It's a message, not to deliver, but for you. Assignment reroute, he mumbles, handing over a steamed bun with the other hand. Northern loop, through plum country. Lucky you. You chew thoughtfully. Plum country means winding hills, light rain, and some of the finest preserved fruit in the empire. It also means steep slopes, creaky bridges, and the occasional mudslide. But still, there are worse fates. Your new route begins inland. You cross paths with merchants, carting dyed fabrics, a troupe of musicians with a broken zither, and two scholars deep in debate about whether fish dream. The louder one insists they do, and you silently decide to believe him. By midday, you're in the hills. Terraced fields curve like green fingerprints across the slopes. Peach trees blossom above you, their petals drifting like sleepy confetti. The road here is narrower, rockier, and clearly not designed for speed. You dismount often, leading your pony carefully over slick stone paths. It's not glamorous, but you can't complain. Well, you do complain, but only in your head, and only when you trip over a particularly aggressive tree root. As you climb higher, the mist begins to settle. Thin, gentle clouds wrap the peaks like shawls. You stop briefly at a rest station, just a stone platform with a roof and a rusty tea kettle left on a brazier. A note carved into the wall reads, "If the water's warm, thank the courier before you." It is. You do. Somewhere up the path, you hear bells, not temple bells, but the soft, irregular jingle of goat collars. And then you see them, a tiny village perched on the ridge, goats in the streets, and wind chimes strung from every awning. The soundscape is chaotic and calming all at once. This isn't an official courier stop, but a kind older woman offers to trade you rice, porridge for news. You give her the latest court gossip you've heard 3 towns back, possibly exaggerated, and receive a steaming bowl and a toothy grin in return. This, too, is part of the job, being the thread that ties remote lives to the rest of the world. You wonder if she'll retell your half-true stories by the hearth tonight, embroidering them with each retelling until they become local legends. Historians still argue, she says thoughtfully, whether the capital even knows we're up. Here, you chuckle. They will when their peaches stop arriving. She nods sagely and hands you a jar of salted plums for the road. Refueled and slightly sticky, you press on. By evening, you've reached the far side of the hills. The descent is steeper, but you're rewarded with the sight of a long valley bathed in golden light. A small town clings to the riverbend below. Your next stop, and the end of today's leg. You arrive just as the lanterns are being lit. Children run barefoot across the street. An elderly man is playing a 2-string fiddle. That sounds like someone humming through a teapot, but it's oddly beautiful. Your arrival barely registers. That's the way you like it. The local courier agent, a woman with sharp eyes and a permanent ink stain on her cheek, greets you with the tired cheerfulness of someone who has been doing this far too long. She checks your ledger, stamps it, and waves you toward the bathhouse. "Trust me," she says. "You smell like a haunted scroll." She's not wrong. The bath is hot, the steam is thick, and for the first time in days, your muscles begin to unclench. You scrub road dust from places you didn't know had creases. Someone passes you a slice of dried mango and doesn't ask any questions. It's heaven. Afterward, wrapped in a borrowed robe, you sit outside under a paper lantern. Fireflies blink lazily in the reeds. Somewhere nearby, frogs begin their evening symphony. You think of how far you've come, of rivers crossed, scrolls delivered, weird foods survived, and horses placated. The empire is vast, and you're just one tired traveler carrying messages across its veins. But somehow, that feels like enough. Tomorrow will bring another destination, another parcel, another inn with questionable soup. But tonight, You're dry, clean, and surrounded by the soft hum of the valley. And in this moment, as the stars blink awake above you, everything is very, very still. Your journey continues early, the next morning, but there's no urgency in your steps now, just the steady rhythm of someone who knows the route, the weather, and the quirks of their own knees. You follow the river north, its banks lined with weeping willows and ducklings that paddle in tidy little rows. Occasionally, a boat drifts past, a reed covered barge, hauling clay pots, a fisherman napping under a woven hat, even a traveling poet scrawling verses with one hand and eating boiled peanuts with the other. You've learned to recognize the signs of different towns by their smells. This next one, pickled turnips and drying lacquer. The streets are quiet when you arrive, just after noon. It's market day, but the mood is slow and sleepy. A pair of elderly men play chess in the shade. Their game is older than your postal assignment. You deliver a parcel wrapped in oilcloth to a local tax official who barely looks up from his game board. He mumbles something about bandit reports south of here, then flicks his finger to move a piece. You wonder how often chess moves have decided policy. The message was important, but the delivery is unceremonious. That's the job. You carry precious words across mountains, deserts, and sea, and half the time, they're opened by someone who treats them like junk mail. Still, you're not in it for applause. Your next stop is further north, near a forest shrine where deer roam freely and the priests keep bees for both honey and wax seals. You travel on foot for part of this stretch. The path is too narrow and tree-choked for a pony. It's quiet in the woods, the kind of quiet that rings in your ears. Bird song, leaves, the crunch of your boots. It's here, between branches and drifting pollen, that you have time to think. You wonder how many others have walked this road with scrolls under their cloaks. How many messages lost in the storms or floods? How many promises sealed and broken? The postal system isn't just paper and people. It's memory. It's movement. It's the threads holding the empire together. Historians still argue how widespread the postal network truly was. Some claim it reached every village. Others say it mainly served officials and elites. But in places like this, wooded, remote, peaceful, it's clear the system mattered, even if only for the simple fact that you are here, that your presence connects this shrine to the capital, this trail to a palace, this moment to a larger story. At the shrine, a monk accepts a folded letter with a bow. He offers you sweet tea and a seat near a small koi pond. You accept, grateful. The tea is floral, the kind that makes your tongue pause in confusion before agreeing it's good. The koi watch you like suspicious librarians. After a short rest, you're off again, back toward the plains. The hills flatten, the trees thin. You pass a brick kiln, a school, a group of traveling musicians walking with flutes tied to their waists and blistered feet. You trade them a story about a goat that stole an imperial document in exchange for a song. It's a decent tune. You hum it for miles. Finally, you arrive at your last drop-off point. It's not a palace, not even an office. It's a roadside way station, half stable, half post house, where a red-cheeked young woman takes your final scroll. She stamps your ledger and smiles like she's been waiting for you all day. Maybe she has. Or maybe she just smiles at everyone like that. Your satchel is empty. Your boots are muddy. Your legs ache in places you forgot existed. But you're done. For now, you sit on a bench, lean back against a bamboo post, and let out a sigh so deep it might count as an official wind. The sky is streaked with orange. A chicken is trying to intimidate a snail nearby. It's failing. You've delivered messages across half a country, outpaced robbers, crossed rivers, soaked through your socks, traded gossip with tea sellers, and learned the precise weight of 3 scrolls when wrapped in waxed linen and jammed into a satchel beside 2 salted plums. You've done the job, and as night falls again, warm and wide, you feel something settle in your chest. Not pride, exactly, just the quiet knowledge that you moved the world forward by a few inches. That's all a courier can do. And sometimes it's everything. The stars above are soft tonight, no longer sharp pinpricks, but gentle smudges of light, like someone dabbed them onto silk with a sleepy brush. The wind has calmed to a hush. Even the trees seem to lean in, listening to the silence. You're still sitting there, on that bench outside the final post house, your boots kicked off, and your satchel resting at your feet. It's lighter now. Physically, yes, but also in the way that something is, once it's fulfilled its purpose. No more scrolls, no more urgent stamps or whispers of storm delays. Just stillness. You tilt your head back. The sky arches wide above. You, stretching from the mountains you crossed to the sea you glimpsed 2 weeks ago. You've come so far. The empire may be vast, but tonight it feels familiar, walked, known. A soft bell chimes somewhere inside the post house. Not a call to duty, just a wind chime shifting gently, reminding you that you're safe, that you're done. The night air is cool on your skin. Your heartbeat has slowed. The road will always be there, curling onward, waiting. But for now, it doesn't need you. So breathe in, let your eyes drift closed if they haven't already. Feel the quiet settle around your shoulders like a warm, woven cloak. No hoofbeats, no distant drums, no lists to remember, just the slow, sure rhythm of your breath and the soft memory of places visited, words delivered, and peace earned. You're home now, wherever you are, wherever you've wandered, and everything else can wait. Sleep well, traveler.